You are owned when you decide to come and follow Jesus, and um, when you make him your savior, you enter into a contract with him where your life is no longer yours. Um, you're giving your life to him. That's, we hear about it, and it sounds kind of cliche, but you are giving your life to him. You are no longer yours. It is no longer yours. I want to read something out of Isaiah, Isaiah 43. Um, talks about this, and it says, "But now, O Jacob, listen to the Lord who created you. O Israel, the one who formed you, says, do not be afraid, for I have ransomed you. I have called you by name. You are mine. You are mine." What does that mean? You're his. Um, it means that he has sovereignly orchestrated all aspects of your life up to this point. You're right where you are because God has either um, allowed things or, um, you know, proactively orchestrated things to get you to right where you're at. Um, he's given us everything that we have: our talents, our car, our home, our family. All of these things have been given to us by God, and his job is to make something out of us. Our job is to submit to him. And when we begin to see our lives as not our own, when we begin to see that he has purchased us, when we begin to see that we've turned over the keys and turned over the controls, there's something very freeing that comes from that, because you no longer have to worry. You no longer have to take ownership to so many of the things that we take ownership to, because they're now not your responsibility. They're God's responsibility. Ours is just to simply listen and obey. I think about Ethan, my son. How he doesn't worry about paying the bills. He's not worried about whether the car is gonna get inspected. Um, because those things aren't. He's not taking ownership to those things. They're not his concern. And ultimately, when we turn our lives over to Jesus, and when he owns us, those are his responsibilities. We just have to be in position. The verse in Matthew 28 that says, "Come to me, all who are weary, and I'll give you rest." Um, take your what is it? Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I'm gentle and humble in heart, and you will rest. You will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. That always. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. There are times in my life where that just seems like an absolute crock. It seems like complete and utter nonsense, because there's times where it seems like life is so difficult. But what that means is when you've turned over that control, when you understand that he owns us and he owns you, it takes so much of the pressure off of you to perform. God is not uninvolved in our lives. He's extremely involved. And at every turn, he wants to demonstrate his power. At every turn, he wants to demonstrate his forgiveness. At every turn, he wants to demonstrate his provision. In fact, in the book Radical here, God actually delights in exalting our inability. He intentionally puts his people in situations where they come face to face with their need for him. In the process, he powerfully demonstrates his ability to provide everything his people need in ways they could never have mustered up or imagined. And in the end, he makes much of his own name. That's on page 47. when we really begin to understand the idea that we're owned and that we've turned ownership over to Him, um, it frees us up to allow Him to do the things that only He wants, that only He can do, that He wants to do. Because when we're not worried about our life, when we're not worried about what we're going to eat or what we're going to drink or what we're going to wear or how to raise our kids, when we're not worried about those things, when we ultimately understand that those things are from Him and for Him and that He owns them, man, that's when you see His yoke is easy and His burden is light, and that's when you see a life that is connected to something other than what we see normally around us. That's when you begin to see a life that's just glowing with purpose and with just that supernatural provision, that supernatural uncommon. There's a mark and an identity that you can't find anywhere on this earth. So that's what one of the things that this challenge is about recognizing what we need to lay down and what we need to ask forgiveness for trying to take ownership to. What have you, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, but what are you taking ownership to? What are you holding on? Is it a grudge? Is it, are you owning nonsense that somebody told you years and years ago that's defined you, that isn't from God? What are you owning that God's saying, no, that's not yours to own. That's mine. You are mine. So today, be challenged with that thought. You are His. If you've said that you're going to follow Jesus, you've created it. You've entered into a transaction with Him, and you are now His. And so every aspect of your life needs to be turned over and submitted to Him. Your job is to submit. What are you going to submit today?